Uh, yeah, man. Hey, I don't even understand how you do that, man. For real. Like, hey, being late though. Hey, StreamYard was late. It took about a minute for this live stream to go, man. But you know how it is. It's hard to get places on time these days. I'm the king of being late.
Got your own time frame.
Uh,
That's for sure.
that's what it is. But speaking of being late though, I'm probably gonna need about another 15 seconds or something like that. So let's go ahead and kick it off with this. All right, hey, that gave me just enough time to remember what we were talking about today, as if you guys don't know. Um, yeah, so it's just us two today, so
Yeah.
nothing too fancy. We might be the two low end ones. I know everybody else wants to see Drew and Andy and Kai, but yeah, you guys got me and Jeff today. So you know what we're here for: Celtics, Warriors, NBA Finals, Game 3. We're gonna go ahead and chit chat a little bit about what we saw, what we thought, maybe what we think might happen for the rest of the series. Anyone that joins in during this, definitely feel free to go ahead and shoot us some comments or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, we love to hear the feedback, and we also want to hear what you guys think about this series so far, because it has been a good one. So, the game finished 116-100. Celtics going up 2-1 in this series. Game 4 is tomorrow. Jeff, well, you said you got to watch the game, which is, I want to mention for anyone that's actually watching right now, that's not a normal thing for Jeff. For one, he's constantly busy. He's got his beautiful family he's always taking care of. And then on top of that, the dude fell out of basketball. He really just he really just doesn't like it. But he got to catch the game. So what do you think about the
No,
game, man?
and you know what? And it's sad to say because I've been a huge basketball fan for most of my life, and seriously, over the last few years, it has kind of like weaned and gone away. But because we're doing these shows, I have actually watched every minute of every one of these games, and it's usually a little bit later than I want to be up, but I start taking notes and I start talking about like pivotal points in the game and what I feel like it's going on. And usually it's too late by the time that my writing fades off. But anyway, this series, I don't know, man. Joe, it's a little bit different. And it goes to what you just said. I'm a little bit down on the NBA, so I haven't been up and like so excited to watch these games, which I have been in the past. But these games seem to keep going exactly the same script every time. Every time. Boston plays good for a minute, then Clay and Steph start hitting threes, and boom, boom, boom. They make it, you know what I mean? 9 points, 12 points in a row. And then Boston gets back up. And it hasn't, none of these games have been like so intriguing to me. Like the old, I know I'm going to bring it up, but the old Bulls, like Bulls, Pistons, Bulls, Cavs, even back in the day. And it's just not as exciting to me this year. But what I did see is what I do like are neither one of these teams were put together as a super team. Neither one. Boston has done it right, and I really like that. It's kind of the old school way. You know what I mean? You draft some guys, you bring in some guys, you bring in young guys, and man, they have such an amazing young core of players that I don't see Boston being out of the 1, 2, 3 seed for the next 4, 5, 6 years. And watching last night, I kind of saw that Golden State's kind of done it the same way, right? They've those guys were drafted and they brought in. They didn't like trade in and what they did the Durant experiment for a minute, but they got rid of him. But you know what? They've kept their core, and I think that's what I'm seeing right now. Is the difference this year is these are not super teams, and there's no LeBron James, there's no Kevin Durant, there's no James Harden. The only one there is Steph Curry, and he's been there from the beginning. So I kind of like the old school feel about this finals, but I think Golden State's in trouble.
Yeah, and what I'll say is like, of course, it's always going to be a lot more exciting for me than it's going to be for anyone else because right now I'm obviously clearly rooting for my guys to pull it through. Um, but this is exactly how I said this series was going to play out. I mean, these teams are a lot more closely matched than people imagine. I know that game two victory by Golden State was a large blowout. Once again, it was more of a desperation situation. I would have called the same thing happening if the Celtics went down 0-1, and they were on their home floor. You just really like if you're Golden State, you can't afford to lose two games in a row on your home court and then go back to Boston and go play.
Done.
It would have been a done deal for them. So I think that's a lot more what it was. Um, Boston just didn't overreact. So, they knew that they were going back to Boston tied up, and they went out and they did what they had to do in game three. Um, as far as like the main things I'm looking at in this game, um, I mean, look, Jalen Brown as of
Yeah,
right now, I mean,
yeah.
it's really tough for me to say. Really, I don't know which way I would swing, but I'm somewhat leaning, even though I just don't know how I could feel. It's even hard for me to say, but I'm somewhat leaning on if they win this series, him being the MVP. It's like this is a turnaround from even though not that he hasn't played well throughout the playoffs, but this is a huge turnaround from what he has been doing in the previous series because he's been very, very streaky. He's been very turnover prone, and then he's really kind of cost us some games, like the free throws they missed in the Miami Heat game. I can't remember if it was Game 5 or Game 6. I think it might have been 6 because we had a chance to close out on our floor. Um, but he is a completely different player in this series so far, and it's been spectacular. But then it's hard to just look at what Jason Tatum's doing, just not on in the scoring area. I mean, I know the game one he didn't score well at all, but game two
Look,
and three he scored pretty well. But his
yeah,
assist and rebound totals they're immaculate. So I'm like, what are we talking about, a co MVP type situation? I mean, they both are very important to this roster.
yeah, and you know what? Not to interrupt, but it's kind of why Jalen Brown's stepping up right now because it's almost like Jason Tatum is stepping down just a touch in the scoring role, right? And that's what you just said. He's throwing out more assists. He's game managing a little bit more than like he did, I think, down the stretch of the season. And yeah, these guys 1-2. I mean, if they're as good as they seem to be over the past over the last half of the season and the playoffs, these guys are like 1-2 punch in the NBA. And it seems like one can take a step back and one can take a step up. But I think this is really doing a lot for Jalen Brown because seriously, Jalen Brown, everyone knew Jason Tatum was a stud. And he's going to be a stud, and he's going to be one of those guys that's going to draw seats, you know what I mean? Draw tickets, and people are going to watch. But this Jalen Brown is really like, even if it's not for tickets and people watching the game, it's for his career. Jalen Brown is making a big statement that he is going to be a very important player on whichever team he plays on for the next 10, 15 years, man. This kid's good. I agree. You've talked about him for a long time, Joe.
Yeah, I really hope he stays too. I mean, you know how that works when free agency comes up and money and everything else because they have to look at keeping a lot of the other players around. But we have contracts I imagine are going to expire soon. Like if Al Horford wins, I mean, does he not retire? Even if he doesn't, as well as I think he still plays. Even if he doesn't, like, how long do you really want to keep him? Um, if it comes down to being able to pay one player over another. So we don't really know, but hopefully these two stay together. There's been a lot of talk for years about whether or not they could actually play together, and I don't know what Coach Udoka has been able to do this year, but he has made it work, and I mean phenomenally. And I'm even raving over Marcus Smart right now. I
Yes.
mean, he's. I think I say this every single show that we talk about the Celtics, the most improved shooter in the NBA. There was a time that wasn't too long ago. I'd probably say maybe the bubble year, 2020. He picked up his shooting in the bubble. No one really knew if that was like maybe it was just not having a crowd there. What is it? Because
Doesn't count. It's
it was a
bubble.
yeah, it was a sight then to see, and then it's just continued to progress. And this year, it's like I no longer cringe when he takes that shot. Do I hate it when it's the end of the game and we just need a drive? Yeah, I about lost my mind at the end of that Miami series when he just took those three threes instead of driving or whatever. But if it's early in the game, if we have a comfortable lead, yeah, give him space. I don't mind. I don't.
You know
And
what? I thought about that because that was one of the key things that I wrote down like last night when I was watching the game, and it was exactly because you said that prior to this. But I'm telling you, that three that Marcus Smart hit right as the Golden State was making that run, I think they were within two or three, and then Marcus Smart hit that open three was a nice pass. I forget who gave him the ball, but I, that was like in my notes. That was like the key play of the game because if they, you know what I mean, that's a 5 point turnaround, especially because Clay was hitting shots, Steph was hitting shots, so it could have been a 6 or 9 point turnaround, whichever. What
right,
was that? That was crazy. There was a 9 point turnaround last night, right? Steph
right,
got hit. He hit the three. He hit the four free throw. You know what I mean? And then they turned around and Clay hit something, and it was like a 9 point turnaround, and it was so nuts. But Marcus Smart hit that three. It was a kick out three on the corner, and it was right before. I'm not sure exactly the time. I don't have my notes, but I think it was right at the end of the run, and then
yeah,
after that, it had to have been middle of the fourth quarter. And Smart hit that confidently and ran back down the court, and Boston controlled for the rest of the game. And Marcus Smart also seems to be the guy that wants to get back up in Draymond Green's face. So look,
yeah,
that's the battle. That's the battle, and Golden State has their two big guns. Boston has their two big guns, and then they all have a bunch of little good side players. And depends on which of the little good side players step up. You know, Draymond Green's kind of it's kind of an a hole, but but you know that like if you've played sports, you always want that guy on your team. You
yeah,
always want that guy on your team, man. That's your teammate. That's gonna doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, but so Draymond, I don't care for, but they love him. Boston has a good core, and you got Smart. I think Boston's proven that they will win this in 6 or 7, though.
yeah. I mean, Marcus Smart is definitely that's where the similar where the comparison I think comes is it's about the same as Draymond Green, but he has completely turned his offensive game around because Draymond Green just is not that gifted offensively at all. But one big part of that is that the Celtic organization had they pretty much had an expectation for him. They're like, hey, we're going to pay you. They paid him at the beginning of the season to become their starting point guard. And it's like you have to do something offensively. Like we love your defense, but to give you this much money, we love you here on the team. You're the heart and soul of our defense, which is how we run our offense. Um, and he stepped up to the challenge. Like I said, just massively improved. And just like a really amazing stat that they posted at the end of the game yesterday. This is actually the first trio since 1984, which was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, and Michael Cooper to all have 25-5 in a finals game. So that was Jason. That was Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart. So I mean, that's the type
Great
of that's
tidbit.
the type
That's
of
a
play.
great tidbit, Joe. Good call. Good
Yeah,
find.
those are the type of things that you have to do to win, and especially the type of things you're gonna have to do to win against this Warriors team because they are going to throw something different at us. I'm still like, it's still hard to count them out. I think that it's going to be a tough uphill battle if Boston can go in and just protect the home court again tomorrow night and go up 3-1. But at the same time, I want to be careful with that because I'm not trying to have that nightmare of like somehow us now being the other team who blows a 3-1 lead or something like that. So you know I just want to see them get it done. So one game at a time, really. But another thing that stood out though, and I was speaking about Coach Udoka here a little bit ago, but There was also something that I read that came out from Bleacher Report today that said that when the Celtics started struggling, and I want to say that it was either late third quarter, maybe early fourth.
Losing lead.
Yeah, so I guess when he called his timeout, the only thing he said to them was stop playing like assholes. So it's like I said, it's a lot. It's a lot to do with that coaching change. That he's doing things that, as much as I respect Brad Stevens and what he did for the team and what he's still doing for the team as a GM, I think that Coach Udoka has just been able to coach this team in ways that Brad Stevens could have never, ever imagined. I just don't think they ever would have shown him that type of respect. I don't think that they would have allowed him to get. I don't even think that they would have allowed him to say that in a huddle. So, shout out to the coach for really, really bringing this team together. So a couple of other things to touch on in the game. Draymond Green fouled out second time in 3 games in the finals. Pretty telling of what he's doing here.
That's his job. That's his job, right?
Yeah,
That's his
to
job.
neck people and miss wide open threes.
Yeah, well, that's why he needs to stop taking the threes and do look, his role in his role is kind of what Rodman's role was on the Bulls in the 90s. It really is. You lock down one of the best offensive players on the other team. You play great defense. You rebound the ball. You pass the ball. And you distract the other team by pushing, shoving, fighting, yelling, all the other dumb stuff that Draymond Green does. So you don't need Draymond to score, but I don't think he's as good as Rodman, and I don't think Draymond is wow, epiphany, top 3. I think Boston's top 3 is better than Golden State's top 3 right now. Klay Thompson's not at the top of his shelf, because when Klay Thompson's on the top of his shelf, man, when those guys are on and you're watching that quarter where they hit like 9 threes in a row, it's just amazing to watch. But that's not going on right now. So I think Boston's top 3. I think Draymond is not as good as Marcus Smart right now as importance in the lineups. And I don't know. I like Boston, and I didn't like them before. I don't know. Might still not. I'm just gonna watch the games because we're gonna talk about them after every one.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, and I agree. Klay Thompson, it seems like something's a little bit off, but he did get going last night,
A little bit.
which to me, being able to win that game when he got going, because I was actually a little bit afraid of that. The first 2 games, I was like, he honestly has not played well. So in order to be able to win that game with him doing that yesterday, it kind of gives me more confidence. They're not sleeping on him because he's not playing well. They just went ahead and they were like, okay, well, we just have to play through this, and they just kept doing their thing.
You make them play well.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So another thing I want to touch on, because this is one that I wish Andy was on the show for, because the very first thing I saw this morning when I woke up was a comment from Andy, and I'm going to tell everyone right now, Andy doesn't care really who wins this series. He kind of does, because he doesn't really want Steph Curry to be more in the he could be as good as LeBron conversation and stuff like that.
Yep.
Literally the first comment I saw is LeBron would never, ever live down having a fourth quarter like that, let alone twice in the final series. So Steph Curry's fourth quarter stats last night were 2 points. He was 1 for 4 from the field. He had 3 turnovers.
Well, the point is there. Why would you only have 4 shots in a close game?
They're showing him a lot of special defense, which what's great. And I look at kind of what happened in the first game as well. He really went off in the first quarter. Then they locked him in the second. He did decent in the third, but then he only had 4 in the fourth. So I think they're really only playing this. They're only playing this special defense on him when they need to.
So it's a pattern.
Which at the end of games, and I couldn't tell you if they're running the same lineup at the end of the first half or not, but I do know at the end of the games, the Warriors' favorite lineup to run is that I told you they used to call it the death lineup, and now they call it PTSD or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that lineup isn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. Poole, Wiggins, Draymond, and Klay Thompson would be phenomenal playing basketball on their own, but they're not as much of a threat when you don't have this guy just pulling up and hitting shots from all around the court. So they're throwing this at him at the end of games, and it's really hurting that lineup that they've put out that's worked really well against everyone else, literally everyone else. I mean, that's what they use throughout the Western Conference playoffs. And, they're trying to do it. And I don't think they're geared to run anything else at the Celtics. I don't think they are. I think anything else actually gives them worse of a chance to win. So I do attribute what's going on with him in the fourth quarter to defense, but this also is something that's happened to him in the past when they've lost. I want to say that it was also a little bit of a trend during that Raptors series, but that also was a series where I believe Klay Thompson went down. So, you never know.
No, for real, man. Like I said, it's kind of an old school matchup. What is there? One. Wow, as far as Boston goes, there's only really one up and coming superstar on that team. And there's only one superstar on Golden State. Klay Thompson is in the mix as a superstar, but you know what I mean? This isn't James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Russell Westbrook versus LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and I don't know, Hakeem Olajuwon, just for the lack of a better term. But that's why this one's interesting to me. And it might be something about Steph. I mean, is it Kerr that doesn't know how to get Steph to dominate the fourth quarter? Or is it Steph that doesn't know how to dominate the fourth quarter? It's crazy, actually, a little bit. And you know what? Talking about this, especially the way that things have been going with me, I say one thing and the other thing happens lately, and I'll say one thing and the other thing happens lately. But hey, we might just have kicked off. And Steph Curry, if I was Steve Kerr, would make a big point of getting Steph Curry heavily involved in all of my fourth quarters from here on out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at this point, I mean, it's your best player. I mean, he should be involved. Four shots. I mean, that's the thing is because it's hard for me to say that because there have been games that I've kind of like been sitting here yelling at my TV because I feel like Jason Tatum tried to shoot us, back into the game or something. I'm like, man, we probably would have had a chance had he just started not tossing them up. But I mean, when it comes down to the wire, I'd be really hard pressed if I saw a loss and then I look back and I saw that Jason Tatum only took four shots.
Right.
So that makes it a little bit hard
Right.
for me. But I mean, there's going to have to definitely be some form of adjustment. Um, I don't know what it's going to be, and I hope we don't see it. But
Well,
yeah,
and you know what? As far as that adjustment goes, I don't think you just make. I don't think you can just make Draymond Green the biggest bully out there and get technicals and try to throw everybody off their game to get you back in this series. You know what I mean? It's not like they're out of the series, but you understand what I'm saying? You can't throw because now you're putting Draymond out of his real role because what he really is some kind of facilitator on the floor. And there is some semblance when he's on the floor with those guys and everyone knows where they're going to be. And he knows that he's not taking this shot. He's going to look for this guy and he's going to do this. And I almost feel like they're putting a little bit too much on Draymond to be the facilitator of evil, for a lack of a better term, the bad guy.
yeah.
And you know what? If you're trying to make him play that role, then that takes him out of his real role on the team. And I think Draymond's out of his game a little bit. I can see it in his face. I've watched all these games, and it just seems like he's so mad about shit rather than like going out there and seeing what he can do best to make it happen for his team. And I don't know. I mean, what? There's 3 games left, right? So 4 games left if it goes
Or
all the way.
yeah. So one thing that I think I can probably comfortably contribute to that is, excuse me. So like we said, he's not a great shooter. Um, they need a little bit of extra offense from someone, and occasionally they can get that from him, at least in the paint. Well, that's not coming easy for him.
Right.
And at this points out the very last guy who I haven't mentioned yet, and I think that it's very, very important to mention him, especially
Big time.
since he had the highest
Yeah.
plus minus on the Celtics team last night, and that's Time Lord. For those of you
Yeah.
who don't know, Robert Williams. Um, Man, I mean, he finished what 8 points, 10 rebounds, 4 blocks. I think he had a few assists too. I mean,
He
this
handles
guy,
himself like a seasoned veteran as well.
yeah,
Like watching him on the court, the dude looks older than he is.
and I've said this countless times too. I sound like a broken record at certain times when I'm talking
Celtics
about
fan.
the Celtics team, but man, like the team itself is great defensively. They're that much better when Robert Williams is on the court and at least playing it like 80% health. I don't even. This guy's not even fully healthy. You guys should honestly, if you go back and see some of the things that he was doing during the regular season, you probably want if he was 100%, they'd probably be running through teams. There wouldn't have been any 7 game series. So, um, but the biggest thing about that, it goes back down to the rebounds. The Warriors got out rebounded 47-31 yesterday. That
You
was
lose.
another thing. Yeah,
You lose.
you gotta rebound the ball. The turnover differential was not that big. It was only a five turnover difference. Uh, they had 17. The Celtics had 12. To be fair, though, I will say that 2 of those actually came when the B squad was on at the very, very end of the game. I at least watched those. Um, and then the very, very last thing was just the points in the paint. Boston had 52, and the Warriors had 26. So even when they're hitting their threes, we're making sure that when they're missing, they're not getting anything easy in the paint. We're forcing them to play one game and one type of game that they're very, very, very prepared to play, which is become outside shooters. But anytime that you make anyone one dimensional in any sport, they're going to struggle. Um, the Celtics really, really have them in a good position. Like I said, I hope that they can just go home tomorrow again or stay home tomorrow and just handle business. A blowout would be beautiful. Just
Well, you know what the Celtics did, and I wrote a lot of notes and it hasn't come up yet, like in watching these games. But you know what Golden State's known for in these playoffs is winning the third quarter. Well, guess where that comes from? Steve Kerr played on the Bulls in the 90s and has a championship ring or two with the Bulls. And guess what the Bulls were known for? They won the third quarter. I could I'll give it to you on Monday if I have to, but I could pull up the numbers. The Bulls won third quarters. Guess what Golden State did this year? They won third quarters. They won third quarters. They won third quarters. And guess what Boston didn't let them do last night? Win the third quarter. They
well,
tried hard. They were about to. Seriously, it looked like they were about to. It looked like they were about to come all the way back from the 12 or 14 points that they were down and take the lead. But at the end of the day, Boston held the third quarter. And mainly because I'm a Bulls fan and I've watched every damn game that the Bulls have ever played throughout the 90s and went to a bunch of them myself. But it is that third quarter. It really is. It's a big thing. You win that third quarter. I think the numbers are like if you're within a 5 point game at halftime and you win the third quarter, you're looking at like 75 to 80% of the time that team wins the game. And Boston, I believe, knew that's what was up, and they really, really, really went out of their way last night to not allow Boston to beat the shit out of them in the third quarter. And they won. Or Golden State, sorry.
yeah.
And they did. They took them out.
Yeah, yeah, they've done really in the 2 wins they've done really well in the fourth too. I will say that because I want to say the numbers are 23-11, and then I think game one, well, I think that one was 40-13 or something like that. So it's like the way that they're closing these games too has been pretty spectacular. So I don't even think Horford did much anything yesterday. Didn't
He hit
don't
a
think
big shot. He hit a big shot and had a big defensive play late down the stretch.
yeah, he was struggling though, and they ended up benching him for a little bit, but he did kind of come on board a little bit late. I don't really recall Derek White getting going yesterday. So the only reason I'm mentioning these things are because now these guys are just probably the new X factors for the game tomorrow. That's where it comes from. It's this Celtics team is deep across the board. It's like when you hear about Golden State winning games, you know who's having a big game for the Warriors. When you hear about the Celtics, yeah, we're most likely going to hear Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, but that three switches. It can be Marcus Smart on nights, it can be Grant Williams on other nights, it could be Derek
Horford
White on
had a big
another
night.
night, it could be Horford on a good night.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, across the board, we have guys who are going in there and playing confident basketball, and one of them, Peyton Pritchard. I won't go deep in his, but man, like I didn't think that he was going to see any finals minutes. But hey, more power to him because he's hit a couple big shots too, and I can't, I can no longer dismiss him. So we're about 30 minutes in, so probably a little bit longer than what we wanted, but it ain't
What's your
no problem
prediction
like
for
talking
tomorrow?
about
What
good
happens?
good news.
What
So
happens, Jeff?
yeah, so hey, you know what I say. I can't. I don't like to go and jinx anything. So
Give me a
I
score.
I'm not. I'm not. I can't do that. I can't pick a.
Oh!
I can't. I can't.
Okay,
It's
let's substitute Bulls for Celtics. If the Bulls were playing Golden State tomorrow at home in Game 4, what would the score be?
yeah. I can't fall into that trap. I
Come
can't
on.
fall into it because the moment I do, something will happen tomorrow. I'm gonna think back to this. I'm like, Joe, why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? Because this game tomorrow, man. If we win this game tomorrow, it's not over, but it's virtually,
Kinda.
yeah. It's like if we do win this game tomorrow, I imagine that we would finish it in 6 at home. I don't think that we would blow that opportunity to happen. Not like for one again because we just could have done that in the Eastern Conference Finals, but on top of that, just being able to allow the fans to celebrate at home an NBA championship. But on top of that, I just I have a hard um, time just believing that if they win the game tomorrow that they wouldn't close out at home. But I also wouldn't be completely shocked, to tell you the truth, that if they win this game tomorrow, the Warriors not win another game in the series. Like
So lose at home.
if they go in there and if the Celtics go and do what they're supposed to do tomorrow, I would not be at all shocked if they ended the series in 5. Like
At Golden State.
yeah, because the way that the team is playing, I mean, all of those guys, I think they can kind of taste it now. You have Udoka and the leadership that he's giving. You have Tatum, thinking about more than just himself right now. Like he's not out there just trying to score for himself. He's setting up other guys, which is spectacular. Jaylen Brown playing the way he's playing. Everyone's playing unselfish and looking for everyone else. And then you put somebody like Horford out there. Like I wouldn't be shocked if Horford went to Golden State and had the game of his life because this could be it for him. He's never been this close. This is as close as he has ever been in his career. So
Yeah, and I
it's
agree. I feel like Boston is the more confident team right now because, as we've mentioned, Boston is not based on Clay and Steph. And if Steph has a bad day, Golden State probably doesn't win because Clay's not what he used to be. Draymond isn't the guy, and no one else has seemed to step up as far as scoring goes. So Boston could go either way. It doesn't matter who steps up. But Golden State, I think the only guy that matters is kind of Steph, and that gives Boston the advantage. I think Golden State wins tomorrow. And then I think Boston wins the next two and over.
Yeah, it'd be tough to go in there after. And I know one thing: I would hate to go down 3-2. So I mean, if we go down 3-2, I do believe that. I don't believe that they would lose in Game 6. So I think if we do go down 3-2, we are looking at a 7-game series. At that point, we're just out there playing, man. Just, so you just never know.
But
But
yeah, and like I said, it's not. This isn't LeBron. This isn't Harden. There's nobody on, and even Steph. He doesn't have the ego and the presence that other. You know what I'm talking about. Steph is a superstar, but he's not LeBron James, and he's not like Durant and Harden and all these guys that bring all this attention to the game. Steph's kind of just that quiet guy that is the best shooter in the history of the world. And when he's hot, he's on fire.
yeah,
And just, I don't know if Steph has enough to carry this team by himself. And it seems like there's no other, you know what I mean? It just seems like Boston's determined and Golden State is trying. And I think therein lies the difference in this series because they're depending on Steph and Boston's depending on Boston. And I think that gives them the edge. I don't know. It's just the way that I see it, man. I see it in their faces.
yeah, yeah. Well, whoever would have thought, man? Like I said, into January, this was a team we were talking about potentially unloading, and whoever would have thought that come June we'd be talking
True indeed.
about them potentially winning the NBA championship. So, um, all right, well, we're gonna be back on and touch on Game 4 afterwards. So we'll see you guys all again on Saturday. But before we kick off of here, what you got for some final thoughts here, Jeff?
Final thoughts. Like I said, haven't been in the NBA. I'm gonna watch all these games. I think it's gonna go to 6 or 7. I mean, it should be entertaining. There's enough stars, and I like the fact that it's not the superstars. You know what I mean? Which I've been iterating the whole time. So I like watching these teams that have built their rosters the correct way, I guess, without any other better way to explain it. And young guys, new guys, non superstars. So I like this series. I'm going to be into it. My final thought is the Belmont Stakes, Saturday. You knew it was coming. But look, man, I really like number 6, Modonigal. I've watched all these races. I'm going to Northfield tomorrow to get my tickets. So if there's anybody here that wants me to put them in, let me know. I'll probably be there about 3:30. But Mo Donegal Saturday. Me and Felix already have our charcuterie board. Guess what? Who she picked?
Charcuterie.
Yeah, charcuterie, and she eats everything. We have this awesome like piece of a tree that's laminated that you put all your food on, and Felix eats everything off of it. Like everything. It doesn't matter what you put on it, she eats it off of there. But she also picks horses, and she rolled with the number 6 as well. So go with the number 6 Saturday, guys.
Hey, that might be a good idea. I know that if I ever do any more race betting, including Saturday, I would be going with maybe number 6 because you said that, but also the longest shot for the rest of my life. So,
That paid big last time, man.
so,
I'm
so yeah,
so mad I missed it.
yeah, the longest shot at least has 10 of my dollars for the rest of my life. I don't care what it is. Um, but yeah, hey, same thing. I just looking for an amazing end to the series here. Eh, no matter how it ends, I really, really love how my team is playing. I love the series so far on both ends. It's been just good games to me. Um, and the best feeling in the world right now is that we have them on their heels. I mean, listen to them. The media all day today is talking about people in the crowd saying the F word around kids. I'm like, that's the first time you've ever heard that in any arena. Come on. It's
Never.
they're talking about things off of the court to try to, get whatever narrative they want to get across to the media. They're talking about Steph's ankle injury or whatever it was that wasn't a dirty play whatsoever. Draymond Green does 10 times worse every single night. So you can tell that we have these guys on their tails. So this is not normal Golden State Warrior conversation that we're hearing them have to the media. So that feels good more than anything else. And I'll say that. So amazing series. Hopefully my boys go and just, like I said, get it done tomorrow night, take that 3-1 lead, and hopefully we can run away with it and just wrap this thing up, because I don't know if I have the heart for another 7 games, man. That's 3 series in a row is rough. 3 series in a row would be rough, but yeah. So that's pretty much it for. So everybody enjoy the games. Be safe out there. Make sure you throw some bets down on number 6 if you're trying to get down on the horse racing.
If
Do
something
it.
changes, I'll let you know.
Yeah. But until then, I'm gonna go ahead and try to time this up like Drew does. But we